relationship to Gloria? And
My name is Stephen Schulman, and my relationship to Gloria Stein is I am her biological nephew. And Gloria Stein is related to me because in her former life, she was my Uncle Butch, known as my mother's brother, my deceased mother's brother. And since she became a transgender, she went from being Uncle Butch to Aunt Gloria. Prior to surgery with Gloria, and when she was called Butch, she was a person that I despised. I grew up in a very dysfunctional, I know that's a very common word, but very bad home life as a kid. And Butch was my only salvation for normalcy. And the only thing that I looked forward to my early years in elementary, junior high was going away on the weekends to his house. Sometimes I get confused because in my mind, my uncle's been dead for years. I don't have an uncle. And I've always referred to my uncle as in the past, like a dead uncle. So forgive me if I use she where he should be because I'm so used to saying she, meaning Uncle Gloria, Aunt Gloria. But growing up, I just got used to, not to dislike her, but literally hate him, because he was a guy that my mother, which was his brother, his sister, always told me was a bad, and I always reached out to him for guidance, because I never had a father figure. I never had a father, so he was my only role model as a male. And every time I reached out for him, he would abandon me or reject me or say, go away, I don't have time for you and everything. And it would hurt me really bad. I'd cry and I'd wonder, what did I do wrong? And my mother would always say to me, it's nothing about you, Stephen. Your uncle's a bad man. I took all these things that she said and I believed them. I didn't question why, I just agreed with what she said because there was no other reason not to. I was young and very impressionable, and his actions proved her to be right. So I grew to hate him. And I grew to hate him for many years and wished him dead, until, they had an auto salvage and scrap business, so they worked, with metals and with auto junkyards. Typical macho type business. The whole time I was doing my own thing in college and after college, I never gave it a thought about my uncle. I thought he was dead. He never tried to contact me. I never tried to contact him. I wrote him off as my Uncle Butch is dead. I got this phone call from my sister, which just rocked my world. I've got this phone call, and she says, Stephen, I got something to tell you. And I said, all right, Susan, what is it? She says, well, we don't have an uncle anymore. Uncle Butch is gone. Uncle Butch is gone. There's no more Uncle Butch. And she was very sad about it. And I think she was sad or just very puzzling in her voice. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't exactly like, oh, Uncle Butch is gone. Aren't you happy? She says, Uncle Butch is gone. I want to tell you, we don't have an uncle anymore. And I said, great. When's the reading of the will? And she said, well, it's really not like that, Stephen. I said, we don't have an uncle anymore, but we do have an Aunt Gloria. And I'm thinking, that bastard, I know he loved women so much. He was married twice, and I know his passion, he loved women because he had two beautiful wives. So I'm thinking this to myself, you mean to tell me, you're calling me to tell me that Uncle Butch is gone, but we have an aunt, and the aunt inherited all of his money and the junkyards and all the buildings and all the cars and everything? And she said, no, it's not exactly like that. And I says, Susan, then what is it? Come on, you don't have time, I'm a busy guy. She says, well, Stephen, I think you better sit down. And I said, to the best of my knowledge, well, what do you mean? This is Susan. I said, I'm sitting. Come on, Susan, come on, because she's, could be a drama queen at that time. Anyway, she says, well, Uncle Butch is now our Aunt Gloria. I didn't understand what she meant, and then she says, our uncle has changed and became a woman. And I still didn't comprehend it. And I says, wait a second, you're telling me that he had a sex change? And he says, yeah, and he wants to meet you. And she wants to meet you. And I was almost threw up. I got so nauseous in my brain, I says, I couldn't imagine. I said, oh, are you kidding me? Oh. Last thing I wanted to do was see my uncle looking like a woman. I couldn't imagine it. The thought of that bald, cue ball-headed guy looking like a woman just repulsed me. I mean, what could he look like? I showed up at this church and went into this room, which was like in a meeting room or something, and I sat down, and I've never seen a group of uglier looking, I don't want to call them women, but just women, men and women, I mean combination, I mean human beings in my life. It looked like a sideshow, a freaky sideshow, because I had never known any transgenders or transsexuals or whatever you call them at the time. I was totally unaware in the beginning. But anyway, I went there, I sat down, and I was trying to figure out which one was Uncle Butch. There was tall ones, short ones, fat ones, long ones, black ones, white ones. I thought, well, maybe if he changed his sex, maybe now he's black. I don't know. I had no idea. And so I sat there, on this bench at the end of a long, room. And, nobody's coming up to me. So I figured, okay, this is good. Let's get out of here. And my friend Joyce says, no, let's just stay here for a bit. Well, we'll see who Gloria is, or Butch, or whatever. And all of a sudden, this woman starts coming towards us. And she stands out, or it stands out, differently than any other it's there. I mean, this woman had a nice body, very feminine, well-manicured nails, beautiful high heels, glamorous legs, hair meticulously done, makeup meticulously. I mean, just completely different. And she's coming closer and closer to me. And I'm sitting there and I'm getting nervous, more nervous and nervous, and saying, why is this person coming so close to me? And then she gets close enough to me, and I stand up, as if to greet her, and she sticks out her hand like this and says, hello, nephew. And for about 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds, I was just in awe. I stood there, I looked, and Uncle Butch? I'm your Aunt Gloria. Oh my God. And then she gave me a hug, and I was just 35 years of hatred. I mean, literally hated this man, just disappeared. Because I was talking to a woman, a soft, feminine looking woman. And I couldn't believe what's happening to my mind. I was shocked. And I was saying, something's not right here. My brain is going haywire. So anyway, once I gained my composure, we said hello, how are you? And she said, hey, just have a seat. The meeting's about to begin, and then if you'd like, you can stay, and afterwards you can come to dinner with us, and you can, see what this is all about. So I looked at my friend Valerie, and she said, sure. I said, okay. And I was just dumbfounded. I mean, I just never would I have ever in a million years, if you had me on a street, would I have recognized my uncle. Completely different and so natural. It just blew my mind. And as I was going back home, I was just blown away. I mean, I thought this was a bad dream. I mean, and one of the things that I didn't know at the time was to what extent a transgendered person is. I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was just somebody dressing up in women's clothing. I didn't know it had to do with complete reconstruction of the body. And then I remember I remember talking to my sister about what it meant. And I was in the shower once, and I was thinking about what the thought of having your genitalia cut off. And from my point of view, I mean, having a penis and testicles removed and a vagina made, it just nauseated me. And I didn't know, and I didn't want to know, and I didn't ask her, and I didn't want to know. I mean, I didn't have the vaguest idea. To me, my views were sideshow freaks, people that have, that do things because they wanted to look like a famous person, like female impersonators that go through extensive plastic surgery, but I never really gave it any thought. It was just something that just, it was just outlandish. I didn't have anything positive. Afterwards, right after I met Gloria, I didn't really have much of a change in thought because I didn't really get to know her, talk to her that much. And remember, I saw all the sideshow freaks there. They were all sideshow freaks except for Gloria. I didn't really have any opinion at the time. I was so confused. And I figured, if I remember, the best way I was able to deal with it was to forget about it. I just forgot about it. I just said, but my girlfriend, who's very, very conservative and very, very straight and laced, had no idea about transgenders, transsexuals, started up with a conversation with Gloria. And I didn't really hear much about it, except they were talking about high-heeled shoes and makeup and lipstick and stuff like that the women talk about. And then on the way home, when I was home with Roberta was telling me about some of the conversations she had with Gloria. And this is when I first started to become interested in what this was all about, and thinking, well, there's so more there to it than what I was thinking before. And let me just clarify so you'll know. Roberta, who's a straight, I said, a straight feminine woman, was talking to Gloria about female issues. And according to Roberta, Gloria was answering Roberta's questions, and they were having a conversation as if it was two women talking to each other about women's issues. But Roberta couldn't figure it out. How did a man know so much about women's issues that could talk about them as if she's been a woman all her life? It was confusing. And that's where I started, saying, wait a second. Roberta, you mean to tell me Gloria was answering your questions? You were talking about women's issues, and she was answering you these questions and talking to you as if she was a regular, biologically born woman. She said, yeah. She says, I don't understand it, Stephen. So she was confused. And I said, I don't understand it either. So I kind of got curious a little more. And then I started, asking more questions, and I think I started attending several more of the support group meetings, and learning a little bit more about it. And then at that time, I figured, well, I had an idea in my head. I said, well, you know what? Now that she's not going to die, now that I know Butch is dead philosophically, if you will, but not physically, and Butch, who is now Gloria, looks pretty darn healthy to me, I know that I'm not going to get any inheritance. So I thought, well, you know what, at least let me see if I can use my capitalistic, ideas and write a book, write a biography, and sell it and see if we can make some money. So I asked her, I said, do you mind if I interview you, write a biography on what you did, put it, in the bookstores, and see what happens. And at the time, I found out that she was one of the oldest, if not the oldest, transgender to ever have the sex change. And I think to this day, she is still one of the oldest women to have ever gone through it, or men to have gone through it. So she totally agreed. She said, sure, whatever you want, anything I can do. She was very agreeable to do whatever it would take to bring us together, because she was very, very saddened about the many years we were estranged. She didn't know why I hated her. She didn't know I hated her. She didn't know any of this. I just never let her know, except when we were much younger. She couldn't figure it out, you know, or he, she, it couldn't figure it out. But when we sat down and she agreed to allow me to interview her, and she allowed me to, you know, get a contract for the rights to her life story, you know, for television, radio, film, whatever, and everything. She said she only had a couple of restrictions. You know, she was totally open, telling me anything I wanted to know. She says, no question is too private. I said, you can ask me about sex, you can ask me about the surgery, you can ask me about my lifestyle, you can ask me anything you want. There's only two things that I want, you know, that I want to make sure are very clear up front. I said, what is it? She said, well, one of them is anybody that I'm involved with, their names will be left out. Because she was romantically involved with a biological lesbian who happened to be a very prominent banker and businesswoman in Fort Lauderdale. And I said, I don't care, the name's not important, just change the name to Jane Doe. And the second thing is, which is more important to me, much more, is why have you hated me all these years? And that was hard, because when she asked me to tell her why I hated her, that became very difficult, because how do you tell somebody and be honest with them why you hate them? And she says, well, listen, Stephen, I said, you know, there's no reason, I'm harmless, I just want to know what it is about me that you resented. And that was tough, that was real tough, real tough, because I remember sitting in her house in Lauderdale, somewhere, Lauderdale, and talking to her, and there was really like 3 or 4 issues that bothered me. And, you know, I asked her the questions, why'd you do this, why'd you do that, what happened here, what happened here, and I told her what my mom, you know, told me, you know, about you. And she answered the questions, you know, and she had a response for each question I asked, and this is where everything changed. This is where any hatred or disrespect or dislike I had for him, her, changed. Because when I asked him, her, these questions, the answer she gave me made perfect sense. And it would have been the same thing I would have done in this situation. But the problem was, and this was the crux of my book, which I was trying to, you know, instill in the readers, whoever would read it, is that you don't want to resent people based on what you hear. I mean, because, you know, hearsay can be wrong. Somebody can say something, it can be totally wrong. And in my case, I spent 35 years, you know, not having a relationship with my living relative because somebody told me wrong information. I never checked it out myself. So once I found these answers, you know, to my questions, we hugged, we cried together. I mean, like, it was like, we could have probably filled a gallon of water of tears, you know, because there's like so many years of hatred just coming out, so many tears of sorrow, and I mean, things to catch up on. Things came out of this. Aside from the fact that I now have a wonderful, loving aunt, who's my relative. She's my aunt, not my uncle. My uncle's dead. I completely never think of her as anything but my aunt. She also has given me something that I never had. She's given me an insight into my past. Had I have not met her and talked with her, I never would have known about my past. So this whole issue about her doing what she did has been nothing but positive. This ordinary person who did this extraordinary thing, created an extraordinary relationship between us, which was so severed that you'd never think it would ever be brought together. And it's been just great ever since. You know, and today we socialize, we talk all the time, we are just very close, you know, and I love her, she loves me, and, you know, I have a new relationship, and, you know, it's great. It really is. It's really great. You know, I've got to meet a lot of other transgender people, and none of the stories are like this. All the other transgender families people that I know, it tears them apart. You know, sex change rips people's lives apart. And, you know, I've tried to help other people, you know, that are going through this give my positive experience to help them understand that, you know, you need to be understanding. It's not something that has, you have any control over. It also allowed me to do a couple things that I consider very important in life. There's a lot of discrimination to gay, lesbians, transgenders in South Florida as well as around the world. And being a straight heterosexual man and being in the insurance industry, which is my primary profession as an insurance agent, the insurance industry is extremely prejudiced and against giving insurance to these types of people. And I've been fortunate enough to be the first insurance agent to get life insurance. Gloria is most unusual. Gloria, when I asked her, were you ever trapped in the wrong body? No. Did you ever want to be a woman? No. Hell, I loved women so much. Well, I wanted to be a man loving women. So why'd you become a woman? She says, I don't know. And it puzzled me for a little bit. But, you know, there's a professional doctor that I know here who specializes in transgenders. She's a famous sexologist. And I went and I asked her, and she explained it to me. It was perfectly understandable. You know, some people do things for different reasons. And Gloria's happy. She teaches people. She's a mentor to a lot of people going through identity crises. She's very popular and powerful in the Democratic Club of Broward County. And she gives back a lot. So I'm proud of my aunt. I'm proud to say that Gloria Stein is my aunt. And the whole world can know that she's a transgender. She doesn't care. I don't care. You know, I think it's pretty damn cool. I asked her one thing, though, and I will say this much. I was a little concerned about one thing. I said, to the best of your knowledge, is this hereditary or congenital? I said, because does this mean that I'm going to be looking forward to one day waking up and wanting to become a woman? She said, no, Stephen, it's not. I said, great, because I love women and I want to be a man loving women. So, you know, in that issue, you know, now I know that I don't have to worry about waking up one day and having the same issues. And it's just been great. It's just really been great, you know, and I can't really say anything more about it. It's just that I'm blessed. I'm really blessed. You know, she's happy, I'm happy. It was a great story, and I'm alive. When I started to write the book, my intentions were purely monetarily, purely capitalizing on what she did as a way of me trying to make money to profit on her for the purpose of greed. No question about it. But as the book grew and as I got to know Gloria, it went completely full circle. It went from a biography to a memoir about me and my life interspersed with my aunt and her life, and how we came from hating one another to loving one another because of what she did. So the book was written solely for the purpose of helping other people realize when you have resentments and when you have anger towards somebody, don't let it fester. Confront the individual and say, listen, we need to talk. Because I could have easily have had Gloria die on me, and she could have gone to her grave, and I never would have known that all of these issues I had were false, were untrue. But I was fortunate enough to be able to have her answer the questions, clear my conscience, and today we have loving relationships. So the book completely changed from being greed to being one of, like, I guess, self-help. As a memoir, it's a true story. So where does the story? We're just a normal, regular family. Some of them. And I've seen some of them, and met some of them, seen some of them. And there's one particular person that I won't mention, but I look at her and I think, there's no way that could have been a man. I mean, and this is a woman, I mean, a man that became a complete transsexual, transgender. And she's gorgeous. And I find myself physically attracted to her. You know, I mean, I don't know her, but just hello, how are you? But I look at her and I think, wow, a hot looking woman. But I know in my mind, that was a man, and I have like confusion. But I asked Marilyn Volker, this doctor that I was telling you about, and she says, perfectly normal, Stephen. She says, this person is a woman, just happened to be born a man. And it's been interesting. I've learned a lot about, you know, the biological aspects of it. I've learned a lot about the scientific aspects, and there's a lot of. I was in a symposium where there's this 5-year-old male who lives in Coral Springs, who from the time he was a year and a half wanted to dress only in girls' clothes. And now the kid has got his first year in public school, and the parents are fighting to allow him to dress as a girl because he refuses to go to school unless he can wear women's clothing. And this is someone that started at 18 and a half months old. How does somebody know at a year and a half that they're in the wrong body? Transsexual is when they want to transfer their sex. They want to transfer the sex from male to female for the purpose of having sex with the other sex. Transgender is in the head, when they want to transfer their body to become another sex because in their mind but some people just want to blend in. Not everybody wants to bring attention to themselves, so therefore, you know, it's not like it's the most common thing as it is, you know. Eventually it will be. You know, there's a lot of people who commit suicide. A lot of transsexuals commit suicide because they can't stand living their life as what they were born as. Sort of like, it's like staying hungry all your life. Eventually you're going to die. I asked this woman that I just got health insurance for, I said, how would you explain the feeling, or how would you use an analogy of, how did you know that you were born in the wrong body? And she says, it's like, how do you know when you're hungry? You just know. It's a feeling. I said, well, you know, I get hungry because I get like a pain in my stomach, or not a pain, or I get this feeling that I need to eat. Well, I've had this feeling that I need to be a woman. And I asked her, well, what took you so long? She says, because I kept fighting the feeling, thinking it would go away. Never knowing that, you know, I mean, I have 2 children, I have a wife, and this particular woman, incidentally, is still married to a woman. So the point is that she said it's just a feeling that you have, and then you can't get rid of it.